Is it true that men are beginning a trajectory where it seems that they're veering more right, whereas women, I guess in a certain demographic, a certain age range, seem to be venturing further left?
Oh, for sure. That's for sure. It's men and women under 30. So over 30, it's a different kettle of fish. But under 30 and even under 35, you find that women are moving to the progressive left and men to the conservative right. And this is really interesting in its manifestations in the way that we interact. So, for example, if you look at dating profiles, you find that 71% of people who say they're politically liberal won't date somebody who's politically conservative. 41% of people who are politically conservative won't date somebody who's politically liberal. And then you're thinking, why? Does that mean that conservatives have lower standards? No. It means that the people who say they're conservative are generally men, and they're like, yeah, I'll date a liberal. And women are like, no, because women always have higher standards in dating because they have a higher investment in dating than men do. That's just how dating works, as a matter of fact. So that's why you see those asymmetries, and the result of it is that fewer and fewer couples are getting together. I mean, when I was I'm 60. When I was 25 years old, all I wanted was, I was already actually locked down at that point. But when I was 23, all I wanted to do was meet my soulmate. I couldn't care less. I mean, I fell in love with a girl who didn't speak a single word of English. How could I know what her politics are? I couldn't have cared less what her politics. She could be a communist revolutionary. If she's meant to be my wife, that's the way I want it to be. And anymore, I mean, this is like, politics is like a cult, man. I mean, people are defining their identity on the basis of how they see these social and political and economic issues. It's insane. And it's ruining their happiness.
What do you think is driving this divergence? Is it podcasts?
Yeah, no. Well, I mean, social media is not helping, but part of it is the fact that traditional faith and philosophy are in decline. So the year I was born, in the mid-1960s, 1% of the population said they had no religion, none. Now it's 33%. It's skyrocketing, and it's especially true for younger people. Well, that psychology abhors a real vacuum. People need to believe in something. And they're basically bean fed an obnoxious, dangerous cult called politics. That's ideology. So activists are stepping in where religious leaders would have been in the past. And that's a real problem for young people because it won't bring happiness. It won't bring a sense of meaning. It won't bring a sense of fulfillment that people would ordinarily get from traditional religion, or at least spirituality.
Why do you think it seems, why has politics seemingly sucked all of the air out of the room with regard to other modes of discourse? It feels like everything's become so politicized.
Yeah. The good news about that actually is that most people still aren't. And I didn't realize that. I mean, I lived in Washington, D.C. for a long time when I was running a think tank in D.C. And then in 2019, I left and I moved to Boston, and my neighbors didn't talk about politics. And my neighbors were talking about their kids or, Little League. They were talking about other stuff. Now, I mean, people are still pretty political, but if you're in a circle of people that does talk about politics, that's kind of all you're going to hear. So one of the things that I recommend that people do is find friends who don't care about politics very much. Find friends where you don't know what their politics are, and whether you talk about it and they'll be like, you got something else to talk about, man? Because life is short. And it's actually okay to care less. It's actually okay to say, yeah, Kamala Harris or Donald Trump's going to win. And I don't know. Yeah, I kind of have a preference, but I'm going to be okay either way. That's not irresponsible. That's not bad citizenship. That's normal behavior. That's mentally healthy, actually, to be able to say something like that.
Wow, that's exactly how I feel.
Yeah.
But I feel like social media creates this echo chamber where, it just seems to be so, everything today seems so inflamed. You log into... And I guess the filter bubbles of social media are kind of catering the algorithm to whatever it is that you're more inclined to click on, and what people tend to click on tends to be the more inflammatory, more hyperbolic content.
Yeah, for sure.
But
I mean, the nice stuff can't get out of bed. It's the nasty stuff is what gets a whole lot of attention, for sure. And so you'll find that the algorithms are finding you with more and more violent, objectionable content. Or people are yelling at each other, where people are having huge arguments with each other. And so there's a tendency to think that is actually what the discourse is in America. And for most of Americans, that's actually not the case. That's just people who are very, very online.
Yeah. As Americans, I feel like we're very, very online. I wonder if that's playing a role in our collective
It doesn't help.
malaise.
It's certainly true for people under 40. Absolutely. but it's not true for everybody. And you can talk to people all the time who don't have social media accounts, and they're like, I don't know what all this is about, man. And they're suspiciously happy.
Yeah, one of the other interesting findings from the World Happiness Report was that older people, at least here in the United States, are now happier than younger people, which is the opposite of many regions.
Right. Yeah, that's right. And part of the reason for that is that younger people are more online. Younger people are actually getting the outrage machine all the time, or the comparison machine, the loneliness machine. Sort of pick your poison depending on the platforms that you're talking about. You can get lonelier the more that you look at social media, for sure. You'll be doing social comparison, which is the thief of joy, and you'll hate your enemies more because that's what the algorithms are pushing you to do. You get more clicks when you're afraid, sad, and fearful. The negative emotions, the negative, positive, negative basic emotions in the human brain, there's only 4. Sadness, anger, disgust, and fear. And they're produced by the limbic system of the brain. They're very, very fundamental to who we are. They get our attention because we're evolved. That's called the negativity bias. We're evolved to have negative emotions get our attention. It means something's chasing us, or something's bad, or we're about to lose something. And so if the algorithms and social media can stimulate those emotions, they're going to get your attention, just like you on the Pleistocene would be paying attention to something that might want to come and eat you or take your dinner. That's really what's going on. They're playing on the worst parts of our evolution, and they're succeeding on that basis.
You think they're aware of that? I mean,
of course, absolutely.
Because it keeps you in the app.
Yeah, for sure. And there's some efforts by the platforms more and more to think about how they can actually start balancing feeds a little bit better and injecting more positive content. And ultimately, the negativity is not going to persist because it can't. People are going to figure out, and they ordinarily do. People are smart. It just takes a generation or so to figure out that if something is making you miserable, you don't have to do it anymore. One of the things that young people, kids my age, my kids are Gen Z, they're 26, 24, and 21, none of them is excessively online. They're barely online at all. And what they figured out when they were in high school was that if something bothers you on social media and you turn off social media, it literally doesn't exist anymore. It's a 2-dimensional phenomenon where if you turn it one direction, it disappears. So what happens, the only way that social media continues to exist is if you keep looking at it. And so that's what they're trying to do. And a lot of people are checking out. A lot of young people are like, no. The people who are most addicted to it, they tend to be people now in their late 20s and 30s, are the people who just can't stop because they've grown up with it. They don't know what life is like without it. They can't disarm because they won't be able to communicate with people appropriately, they think. And their brains are habituated to it with their dopamine pathways, et cetera, and that's a big problem.
Hey, if you liked that video, you need to check out this one here, and I'll see you there.